Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. Today we're going to finish up on evaluating the internal and external environment of the business organization. Specifically, we're going to look at the external environment and look into the microenvironment using the Portas 5 forces model. So key things that we've said earlier are for us to start a business organization or for you to be sure about the profitability of your business, you need to actually take a good strong look at your internal environment. Those are the strengths, the weaknesses that you have as an organization, the resources, the capabilities that you have as an organization. If you see that you have a lot of strengths that will help you to be profitable, then maybe it's a good business to actually be in. Beyond that, you also have to have a strong understanding of your external environment. The reason why we're looking through our external environment is because businesses do not operate in isolation. So what that means is at every given time, you're going to have some sort of relationship with the external environment, so you must have a good understanding of the different factors that are at play in your external environment. And like I've said earlier, when we're thinking about external environment, it's usually divided into two, which is the macro, which is a general, the bigger space. So in the macro, we're looking at political factors, things that are happening in the economy in which your business is operating in, GDP, social cultural forces, the demographic changes, the taste, the trends that people have, potential consumers have, technological factors, the change in technology, environmental factors, the legal and regulatory factors, because all of these things, while they are in the bigger space, there are things that are going to affect the profitability or otherwise of your business. Now, the thing about the macro environment is because it's widespread, it affects literally every industry and every business operating in certain countries. So, for example, if there's a decrease in oil price, it's going to affect businesses in the manufacturing industry. It would affect businesses in the service industry. It would affect businesses in the educational industry as well. So, the difference is for all of these different industries, the level of effect might not be the same. So for one organization, it might mean an increase. For another organization, it might mean a decrease. Or things like if there's a recession. When there's a recession for luxury goods items, there might be a decrease in consumers or decrease in demand. But for items that are lower level, lower end, that are cheaper, you realize that when there's a recession, more people are looking for cheaper items than they are looking for expensive items. So while they are all operating in the same scene or in the same country or in the same government, at the end of the day, the macro environment is not specific to any organization or any industry, but it's more of a general overview of the factors that are outside the organization's control. Now, more importantly now for this conversation, we're going to look at the factors that are within the industry and competitive environments. So these are usually referred to as the micro environment. Now, these are factors that are specific to the industry in which an organization is operating. So if, for example, you are in the service industry, you are a restaurant, or you provide, let's say, accommodation, hospitality for tourists and for tourism. There are certain things that are specific to your industry that are not specific to other industries, and you have to take very much importance or understanding of this particular environment because they have a stronger role to play in whether or not your business is profitable. So in the industry and competitive environment, specifically the micro environment, using the Portas analysis, we're going to look at 5 major factors that will determine the profitability or otherwise of your business. And so these factors are suppliers. Who are your suppliers? Your rival firms. So what other firm is in the same industry that you are in? Who are the new entrants? Is it possible for businesses to get into this industry? Is it easy for people to come into this industry? Who are your buyers? Who are the substitute products? So what other products can a person take instead of your product that will get very similar value? All of these things, all of these factors are what are in place within the industry and competitive environment that will determine how successful or otherwise your business is. We're going to go into all of them individually, but this is just a high level. So like I said earlier, to evaluate our micro or competitive environment, what we use is what we call the Portas 5 forces model. So what the 5 forces does is it looks at the nature of competition as well as the profitability of a particular firm that is most directly to the factors in your competitive environment. So it's looking at your competition. Who are the other players within that industry? What are the other products or services that people might go for instead of your business? What is the power that your buyers have? So we want to see what power all these different factors have in your industry, because that will determine how profitable you are. So the more, just like life, the more powerful you are, the more power you have over the factors within your competitive environment, the higher chances that you will be able to grow as a business. All right, so let's go into the Portas 5 forces. Like I said, there are 5 major forces. There's the threat of new entrants. There's the bargaining power of suppliers. There's the bargaining power of buyers. There's the threat of substitute products or services. And finally, there's rivalry among existing competitors. So we're going to go into each of them one after the other. Let's talk about threat of new entrants. With threat of new entrants, all we're trying to say is how easy is it for another firm or a new firm to enter into your industry? So can someone wake up this morning and say, you know what, I really want to start a printing business. Or you know what, I want to start a photography business. Or you know what, I think I have the great skills and resources to start a videography business. Or have the great skills to start a restaurant. If anyone can literally wake up any day and say, hey, I want to start this business, and they actually have the resources to start that business and to become profitable, that means you have a very high threat of new entrants. And if that's the case, what that means is there's going to be high competition in that market. And if there's high competition, maybe it might not be as easy for you to be profitable. So what we're looking at is, what are the threats? What are the barriers to entry? What are the factors that would increase the difficulty of other individuals coming into your industry? Now, once it's easy to enter your industry, it's very difficult for you to be profitable. So what we always hope for is a situation where there is low threat of new entrants. So for example, I would not just wake up this morning and say, you know what, I want to be a rival firm for Apple, because Apple has grown from years of experience. They have the resources, they have the knowledge, they have the finance, they have the capital, they have the human capital, they already have the brand. For me to easily enter into the technology industry of making phones, so the hardware industry, might not be so easy. So that means that there's a high barrier to entry, and so organizations that are able to enter into that industry and stay profitable would most likely be profitable in the long run. So talking about barriers to entry, a couple of things that might be a barrier that would disable other competitors from entering into the industry are maybe economies of scale. So if for you to actually be profitable in this industry, you have to be doing the volumes, then it might not be so easy for people to come in and be profitable. If for you to make a profit, you have to be selling up to 10,000 pieces or 10,000 quantity. So that means an organization that is thinking, hey, I want to really enter this industry, would not be profitable in the first few years because they might not be doing the volumes. And if that's the case, most organizations would not easily enter into this industry. What are the costs and resources that are related to scale of operation? So again, the larger the operation, maybe you are reducing your cost. So think about manufacturing. By the time you have a big factory and you're doing in the volumes, the cost of electricity, the cost of labor, the cost of machines, all of this thing is going to be minimum based on the quantity you're doing. So in an industry where the value you get is based on the scale of your operations, then there might be some resistance by outsiders to get into this specific industry. Also, brand loyalty. So Apple has built a very strong brand in the sense that a lot of us have Apple products, not necessarily because we get a lot of value from it, but just I'm used to using Apple. I have an Apple Watch, so I might as well get an AirPods. I have an Apple phone, I might as well get a MacBook, right? So we're already used to the brand. We have some level of loyalty to the brand, and so it makes it easier for us to continue sticking with them. Now, in that situation, what is going to happen is any other company that is trying to get into that industry might not easily get into it because, hey, they don't have that loyalty. So people would not easily leave an Apple product to go to another product. So you have to think about how much loyalty people have to the product or to the businesses in the industry. If you have a lot of brand loyalty, you have customers that are return customers, customers that prefer your brand to others, then maybe you have an advantage in this industry and you might be profitable. High capital requirements, if it's very capital intensive to get into the industry, if you need a lot of money, you need to get finance, and you probably is not something that a single individual can have, then it's not a business that anyone would easily get into. So let's think about the aircraft industry. I don't know about you, but chances of you just waking up one morning and saying, you know what, I want to have an aircraft business. I want to build planes. I want to compete with Boeing and the rest. Chances of you actually being successful or getting the capital to start that business is very slim. So Boeing and the other organizations that are in that industry are most likely going to stay profitable for a while, despite the fact that they might not maybe have the best system, they might not be ethically right, but they will stay more profitable just because it's difficult for other individuals to come in. So also barriers could come from the government. So maybe the government is trying to grow their economy within or grow local, and so they put certain restrictions on organizations coming into that industry. Or maybe it's a financial industry or some financial business or something the government feels, hey, you know what, I don't want just anyone to be able to come in. You have to have a certain level of qualification, you have to have certain level of experience, you have to have certain information already in place for you to be able to start this kind of business. Most times it's usually in the resources related business, so extraction or finance related businesses. When government puts such restrictions, it becomes difficult for others to get into that industry. And so that would give you an edge if you're already within that industry, just because there's some levels of barriers to entry. All right, now let's go on to the next phase, or the next factor that might be very important, the bargaining power of suppliers. So the question is, how much power do your suppliers have? Suppliers are the people or organizations that would provide you with some level of raw materials for your own business. So how do you get your parts? If, for example, you are a cleaning organization, how do you get your cleaning items? How do you get your detergents? How do you get your soap? How do you get the bleach that you need? Do you have some level of control over your suppliers? Are you their only are you the only consumer that they have? If that's the case, that means you have a high power. If you're the only consumer, you have a potential level to dictate to the suppliers what do you need, how you need it. Or maybe you are a big organization. So let's think about Nestle. Let's think about Johnson & Johnson. Now, some of these organizations have very strong relationships. Let's even think about Starbucks. Starbucks has very good relationships with the farmers that supply them their cocoa bean. Now, what that means is, because Starbucks is so big, these farmers really would need Starbucks to be on their side. And so if Starbucks says, hey, you know what, I need you to change around the processes for your production, they would most likely listen to Starbucks because they need their business. Or let's think about any other Walmart. So Walmart, Superstore, these organizations sometimes have relationships with smaller retailers or with smaller producers. And most times you realize that there are certain products that you can only find in a Walmart or find in a Superstore. And then because they have such power and they have a larger consumer base buying from them, they have some level of control over the businesses that put their products on their shelves. So in this situation, the suppliers don't have so much power. So you always want to be, and so Walmart can be very flexible in how much their pricing is. They can be flexible in how much they require from their suppliers. So what we're really saying is, at the end of the day, if there are few suppliers to choose from, if their product is unique and it's hard for you to switch products, then your suppliers would have more power. But if you're in a situation where there are several suppliers, if one business says, hey, I don't want to do a business with you again, okay, sure, take your time. I'm going to move on to another organization. Or if you are the one that is the major supplier or major consumer for the suppliers, then you're going to have more power. And so that means that your suppliers have a low bargaining power. So at the end of the day, what do we really want? We want a situation where suppliers have a low bargaining power, because what that means is you have some level of flexibility, you have a level of control, which is always very great when it comes to running a business successfully. Okay, now let's move on to the next one, the bargaining power of buyers. So just the same way your suppliers are very great, your buyers too are also very important to you. So your buyers obviously are your consumers, the people that are going to pay for your product and service. Now, how much power do they have? Is it easy for them to, so let's think about Walmart and Superstore. Some of us go to Walmart just because it's closer to our houses. The minute you move from a house that is close to Walmart and you go to a Superstore, a house that has Superstore closer to it, maybe you're going to stick to Superstore instead. So what is really happening is there's not so much difference for a lot of people between a Walmart and a Superstore. So really, your buyers have some level, just a little bit of control. Now, in the Walmart and Superstore perspective, one buyer doesn't have control. It's the volume that has control. But let's think about a business that has one buyer having some level of control. So if, for example, you are one of the very few buyers of a particular product of a small business in your local community or in your area. What that means is whenever you make a decision and say, hey, you know what, I don't think I want to buy from you anymore, the business is going to feel the heat because you are buying a lot of products from them, or you're one of their very few consumers. However, if you're in a situation where, the business doesn't really, yes, it's nice for them to have you as a consumer, but they have so many other consumers, then you probably do not have so much power. So let's think about if you go into a Tim Hortons or you go into a Starbucks. If you go into a Tim Hortons and Starbucks, they like you as a person. They want you to obviously buy their product, but you cannot go in and say, you know what, I need you to change your pricing. What? Double is $2.58? Absolutely not. I want it for $1 instead. If you do that, they most likely will say, hey, are you sure you're okay? We're not going to change our pricing because of you. So that means they have more power. Their buyers do not have power. Now, in situations, another example again, in situations where your buyer might have more power is, for example, the small businesses, like I said earlier, in Walmart or in Superstore. If these businesses have only Walmart as their major buyers, then Walmart will have a lot of power because Walmart does the volumes. Walmart is probably the one that has more consumers for them. Walmart also has variety. So that means that they really would want a Walmart to always stock their products. And so in that situation, your buyer would have more power. So what is the ideal place? The ideal place is where your buyers have lower power because that way you have more control over your business and they don't have the control over your business. So areas in which you see more bargaining power of buyers is when the cost of switching to competing brands or substitutes are relatively low. So if it's easy for you to switch from one brand to another, then your buyers will have more power. If it's a large size, which your consumers are, then you obviously would mean that they would have more power because they are doing more in volumes. If you have more of a buyer's market, so you hear things like there's more supply than there's demand, then your buyers will have more power. Okay, so again, the final place we want to always be is a position where our buyers do not have more power than us. Now, the next angle to Portas is a threat of substitute products or services. So when it comes to substitute products or services, we're saying, if I don't buy this particular product, what else can I buy? Now, the key thing is this is very tricky. When we're looking at substitute products or services, we're not looking at your brand. So I'm not saying if I do not buy from Lysol, who would I buy from? We're saying if I do not buy a spray, it's called what? A disinfectant spray. If I don't buy a disinfectant spray, what else can I use instead to disinfect my house? So it's not the brand, it's looking at the product. So fish and meat. I don't care who the seller of fish is or who the seller of meat is. The question is, me as a person, because I eat both, I can go into, let's say, Costco, and then I see a pack of meat for $15. It's always $15 every single time, about 15 drumsticks in it. I always buy it. On the other hand, one day I go in and then instead of $15, I see the same pack of drumstick for $38. Now the question I have is, do I really need to eat drumsticks? When there's a plate of fish or there's another pack of, let's say, meat, not chicken this time, there's another pack of meat or fish that is for $14 that would do exactly the same work that I need. I just need protein in my body. I'm not specific about what type of protein I need. So what that means is for meat or for for chicken, fish, or the other product is a substitute product. So if there are so many products or services in the market, that would be a substitute for your product, not your brand, your product. So what is the business that you're doing? You are offering accommodation. You are a hotel. If there's another business that offers accommodation that is not a hotel, let's say an Airbnb, for example, that would be a substitute product. Or substitute service rather. If you're offering a product that I can find another option for, I just want finger foods. For finger foods, there's option of pizza, while there's option of burger. Which one do I want? Those can be substitute products depending on the individual needs of the buyers. So if there's a high substitute product or service, that would mean that you absolutely would not have so much profit. It's going to be a more competitive environment for you, and you always want to be in a space where there's less products or services that are substitutes. Now, very similar to that, and which is our final one, I believe, is rivalry among existing competitors. So with rivalry, what we're saying or competitors, we're saying who are the other businesses in the same industry that you are in? Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Now, they offer very similar products, but just different companies. So now, how much competition is available between Coca-Cola and Pepsi? Which one would you pick? For some of us, some people are very specific on, I want Coca-Cola, I don't want Pepsi. While some of us, I don't drink Pepsi or Coca-Cola on its own. I usually would use that, I'll use it within the context of putting it into something else. So when I go into the store and I don't see Coke and I see Pepsi, I almost likely pick it. Because there's high rivalry. They are very close products that I can use for each other. Now, I'm not looking at the content, I'm looking at the companies themselves. Another example is in this picture that we can see here, there's Fresh Gourmet Pizza and there's Best Pizza in Town. These are two rivalry firms that are just literally beside each other. And then these companies, obviously, there's high competition. So when I go into the streets and I want to buy pizza, maybe I go for a walk, I go shopping, and I want to buy pizza. I'm not really going to be looking at, I really like Best Pizzas on pizza, or I like the Fresh Gourmet pizzas like this. What I'm really looking at is, this is $1.25, this is 93 cents. They are so close to each other that except there's a distinct difference in their taste, and most likely we're just going to anyone. Or Visa card or MasterCard. Very close products, very close businesses. Most times it's all based on recommendations. So some of you really just have a Visa card because that's what is being given out in your banks. Some of you have a MasterCard because that's what comes from your bank itself. So now these two organizations have to really compete with themselves in making sure that they're getting clients that would stick to their own brand. So this is the strongest angle when it comes to the Portas forces. What this particular place is really saying is, if there's so much rivalry, if there's not that many differences between your product and the other person's products within the same industry or the same or similar companies, then you might not have so much power. So we always want to get to a space where there is less competition, because that would obviously mean that you might have more power and have more flexibility and more chances of being profitable. So what are some attributes of an industry that are likely to generate high levels of rivalry? So when there's a large number of competing firms, usually that are about the same size, then there's going to be a whole lot of rivalry. If there's slow industry growth, so there's no potential to grow quickly, everyone is moving at the same pace, there will be a high level of rivalry because you're all competing for similar consumers. Now, if there's literally no product differentiation, you have a MasterCard, you have a Visa card, well, the difference is in maybe the percentages, but that is more specific to your bank. So, there's so many things that will make the products look literally alike. It's just the name. So when there's low product differentiation, then you realize that this might be a problem. And then if for you to increase your growth within this organization or within this industry, you have to do it in large increments. That means at a certain point, everyone is going to be at the same level because we're all giving out the same products, we're all giving out the same volumes, and that might be a level of high rivalry. Okay, so in summary, what is the ideal competitive environment? You want a space where there's high barriers to entry, so businesses are not able to easily enter into your industry because there's a lot of things that would avoid them from entering, like we talked about earlier. You want a place where your suppliers and buyers have weak bargaining power, because that means you have more control, you have more flexibility. You want a space where there's no good substitutes, right? So we don't really have products that can substitute for your products or services that can be substituted for your services. And finally, you want a space where there's low rivalry among existing sellers. All right. Now, if you are able to get this ideal environment, you're going to have a business that is quite profitable. So for us to do the 5 forces analysis, we're going to really go through who are our threats, or who are the new entrants. Can they enter? Who are our suppliers? Who are the businesses that are going to buy from us, or who are our consumers? What are the substitute products? How many competitors are in this particular industry? How much competition do we have? When you're in a space where all of these areas are really ticked out on, then you realize that, hey, maybe this is really a great business that has potential for profitability. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this was easy to hear.